One man became so powerful that nearly 90% of America's oil flowed through his company. He never ran for president. He never commanded an army. And yet, some of the nation's most powerful politicians saw him as a man to be reckoned with. Business owners despised him. From the fuel that lit homes to the oil-powering businesses, Rockefeller's influence became woven into everyday American life. The United States government declared war, not against a country, but against his business. It's the reason this video is titled, Rockefeller Started This. History tells two very different stories about John D. Rockefeller. To some, he was the visionary who helped build modern America. To others, he became the symbol of corporate power taken too far. To his admirers, he was the greatest businessman who ever lived. A visionary. You see, not everyone viewed his success the same way. To many critics, Rockefeller's empire had become the defining example of monopoly power. So, how did a soft-spoken bookkeeper build an empire that transformed an entire industry? That's the story we're about to explore. Because this isn't just the story of one billionaire. It's the story of how extraordinary wealth came to shape business. John's father, William Avery Rockefeller, was far from a respected businessman. His unconventional lifestyle and questionable business practices would leave a lasting impression on young John. Rather than building a traditional business, he became known for marketing so-called miracle medicines to people across the country. The remedies he sold often failed to live up to the bold promises he made. You see, he was a persuasive salesman. He charmed his customers, collected their money, and was often gone before questions could be asked. One parent teaching deception, the other teaching honesty. From his mother, John learned that every dollar earned carried responsibility and should be used with intention. Young John absorbed both lessons. From his mother, he learned discipline and honesty. From his father, he witnessed the power of persuasion and the importance of understanding human nature. By 16, those early lessons were already beginning to bear fruit. While many of his peers were still discovering their path, John was developing the discipline, work ethic, and financial habits that would one day help him build an extraordinary business empire. That obsession would become one of his greatest advantages. While others relied on instinct, John relied on discipline. And then came the oil boom. The discovery of oil sparked a wave of excitement across America. Thousands rushed to drill wells, convinced they were chasing easy money. But while most people were focused on finding oil, John Rockefeller saw an opportunity that almost everyone else overlooked. And that's where Rockefeller stood apart. He wasn't interested in gambling on oil discoveries. He believed the real opportunity lay in refining oil and doing it more efficiently than anyone else. More than videos, it's WatchQuest Media. In 1863, Rockefeller and Maurice Clark partnered with Samuel Andrews to build a Cleveland refinery called Andrews, Clark & Company. Then, in 1865, due to disagreements on expanding, Rockefeller bought out the Clark brothers' shares for $72,500. In 1870, the business was formally incorporated as the Standard Oil Company. But for Rockefeller, this was only the beginning. He immediately set out to improve every part of the company, constantly looking for ways to cut costs, increase efficiency, and outperform the competition. And here's what made the difference. Every tiny improvement lowered costs, giving Standard Oil an advantage that kept growing. He wasn't winning simply because he worked harder. Plenty of others worked just as hard. Rockefeller pulled ahead because he built a business that operated more efficiently, made smarter decisions, and wasted less than his competitors. But efficiency alone doesn't explain what happened next. Rockefeller's greatest advantage wasn't just how he ran his business, it was how he reshaped an entire industry. In the oil business, transportation wasn't just another expense. It was one of the biggest factors determining who made money and who didn't. Rockefeller understood this better than most, so he began negotiating with the railroads. What came out of those meetings would help reshape the American oil industry and forever change the way big business was done. But here's where the advantage became clear. Standard Oil was often able to transport its oil at a lower cost than many rivals. And when that gap keeps growing, how long can smaller competitors stay in the race? Others, facing mounting competitive pressure, chose to sell their businesses to Standard Oil. One by one, Rockefeller acquired competing companies. His critics called the strategy ruthless. Rockefeller saw it differently. To him, it was simply a matter of numbers, an efficient way to build a stronger business. You see, Standard Oil's ambition stretched far beyond refining. The company steadily gained control over critical pipelines that moved oil across the country. Storage facilities, transportation, distribution. One piece at a time, Rockefeller was building an integrated business empire. Competitors weren't simply fighting Rockefeller. They were fighting an entire machine. By the late 19th century, Rockefeller's influence could be seen throughout much of the oil industry. From refining and transportation to storage and distribution, Standard Oil had become one of the most powerful business organizations of its time. And then the questions became impossible to ignore. As Rockefeller's influence continued to grow, many Americans began wondering whether any single businessman should hold so much economic power, and what that might mean for the country's future. Eventually, Washington answered, yes, and that frightened them. The battle between America's most powerful businessman and its government was about to begin. And then the tide began to turn. As criticism of Standard Oil grew, many newspapers portrayed Rockefeller as the public face of monopoly, fueling a nationwide debate over the power of big business. A moment Rockefeller had never faced before. As political pressure intensified, the U.S. government filed one of the most significant antitrust cases in American history, setting the stage for a legal battle that would reshape American business. The legal fight stretched on for years, but when the ruling finally came, it changed the course of American business history. Standard Oil would be broken apart. Many celebrated the breakup of Standard Oil, convinced Rockefeller's empire had finally been brought to an end. But they had underestimated what would happen next. But the story didn't end there. Rockefeller still owned shares in many of the companies that emerged from the breakup. As those businesses grew and prospered on their own, the value of his investment soared, making his fortune even greater than many had imagined. Imagine your company being broken apart and becoming even richer. It sounds impossible, but that's exactly what happened. Yet the greatest surprise of Rockefeller's life wasn't how he built one of history's largest fortunes. It was what he chose to do with that fortune once he had it. The man who had spent decades building one of the greatest fortunes in history began giving much of it away on an extraordinary scale. Through philanthropy, Rockefeller sought to leave a legacy that reached far beyond the world of business. From groundbreaking medical research to global public health efforts, Rockefeller's philanthropy reached far beyond his business empire, touching millions of lives and reshaping entire fields for generations to come. The impact of Rockefeller's philanthropy extended far beyond his own lifetime. By supporting scientific research and innovation, he helped lay the foundation for discoveries that advanced medicine, strengthened public health, and ultimately benefited millions of people around the world. Perhaps the greatest mystery isn't how Rockefeller built his fortune, but why he gave so much of it away. Was it an act of extraordinary generosity, a response to years of public criticism, or an effort to shape the legacy he would leave behind? Historians have explored these questions for decades, but in the end, no one can answer them with complete certainty. History isn't always comfortable. It challenges us, raises difficult questions, and rarely fits into simple categories. And maybe that's the true legacy of John D. Rockefeller. Not just the fortune he built, but the lasting questions his life continues to raise. More than 100 years later, the questions Rockefeller raised haven't disappeared. They continue to shape debates about business, wealth, innovation, competition, and philanthropy around the world. His empire may belong to history, but the issues it brought into the spotlight remain as relevant today as ever. And perhaps that's the clearest sign that John D. Rockefeller's legacy extends far beyond the fortune he built. How much power should a single company have? When does innovation become domination? And how do we encourage extraordinary ideas without allowing any one business to gain so much influence that competition itself begins to change? You see, Rockefeller's life resists simple labels. Was he a visionary who saw opportunities others missed? A monopolist whose extraordinary success sparked fierce controversy? Or a philanthropist whose generosity reshaped education, medicine, and public health? History has never reached a unanimous verdict on John D. Rockefeller, and perhaps it never will. Maybe that's because the answer says as much about us as it does about him. It depends on how we view ambition, success, competition, and power. If you had lived in Rockefeller's America, would you have admired the man who helped transform American industry?